Ah, that's so refreshing, isn't it? Bueller. Bueller. Brings back memories, doesn't it? Anybody see Ferris Bueller's Day Off in the theater? Do we have old people here? You didn't. I don't believe you for a second. I did. It came out in 1986, the summer of 1986, right before I started my senior year of high school, believe it or not. And I think since that day, commencement speakers everywhere have just been so grateful that we have this quote, because I think every graduation I've been to since, whether it was college or high school, someone quotes Ferris Bueller if they want to be hip and 30 years behind the times. But he always said life moves pretty fast, and if you don't stop and look around, you could miss it. And so the whole film, if you did miss it, if you are too young, I was really feeling old when someone was saying, yeah, I was 3 when that came out. And I was like, oh, I thought we were close to the same age. No. But what a day it was. The entire film is based on one day in the life of Ferris Bueller, and it was a day filled with skipping school, which is just amazing. Look at that. I love the cell phones and the mobile phones in that time. And actually, like, I had never seen a mobile phone like that, or it was actually a cordless home phone. You're like, what sort of wizardry is this? This was actually really, really high tech. To be honest, too, there was computer hacking in this when he changed his days off school. I had never thought of a good use for a computer up until this moment. I'm not lying. Like, there wasn't even a computer in my high school. It was a little farm town in Missouri, and we only had 3 electric typewriters. That is true. When you took typing, like, you would switch off on the electric typewriters because they were the new thing. And it just never occurred to me, I still remember this, never occurred to me until I saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off, that computers could be used for good and not just crunching numbers. I was like, you could do that? You could hack things? You could change your permanent record? That was just super exciting to me. And who could forget the Ferrari borrowing? Yes, that's a 250 GT. And that moment when he picks up Sloane Peterson, which is the best rich chick name in the world, I believe. He picks up Sloane from school in the borrowed Ferrari. That's amazing. And then, of course, who could forget the parade, twist and shout? Just an amazing day, an amazing sort of escapist movie. And Ferris, as you can imagine, in 1986, and we're still talking about today, popular with everyone. I don't even know who some of these people are, but he was popular with everyone except for her, right? Like, except for his sister. Yes, that is the Dirty Dancing chick. If you're wondering, nobody puts baby in the corner. Jennifer Grey, pre-nose job. But anyway, like, it's a story of the most popular kid in school, the most popular kid in the world, apparently able to pull off any feat, able to talk himself out of any situation. But wow, his sister Jeannie is having none of it. When I saw this in '86 as a 16-year-old, I was like, no big deal. Sisters are gross anyway. I've got 3 of them. So 1986 dawn, this is me. Like, Kate thought this was some 80s, like, character we were using. No, that's actually me. We're going to deface me every week. But 1986 dawn, I just remember being really impressed with his ditching school game, because I'll just admit this, and I'm going to try not to glorify this because I know we have kids in here. I love to ditch school. That was one of my favorite things in life. Now, I understand. I was thinking, like, it has to be really hard to ditch school now. Like, every mom has a cell phone. Every mom's on Facebook. Every mom is, like, instantly, or dad, too, like, instantly reachable by the school office. That was not the case in 1986. So I feel like I can give you my secret and not harm any children, because you can't do this anymore. Here's the key to ditching school a lot was I had a girl, because it has to be a girl, because guys, I still write like I'm writing with my feet. It's horrible. But like, I had one girl in school all the way through write my notes for me. And you might ask, yeah, but what about if your mom wrote a note? She would rewrite my mom's notes. So actually, in my permanent file somewhere, there is a bunch of notes. None of them are written by my mom. I only got caught one time, and I missed. Now, I didn't want to stay home from school. That's the last thing 1986 Don wanted to do, because number one, My house was boring. We were poor. There was nothing to do there, nothing like Ferris's house. And my mom was a nurse, so you would never say you were sick. You wouldn't even admit you were sick if you were sick. If you were injured, you hid it, because she was like the Civil War surgeon of our house. She was like always like, oh, you're cut. I think we can stitch that. I mean, so you never told her if you're sick. So I would have never done what Ferris did. I would never fake being sick. What I wanted to do is leave school. So that was, I always went to school and then left school. Got caught one time when my fake mom and my real mom called in the same day to ask me to leave for something. That doesn't go well, I'll tell you. Got suspension for that. But other than that, skipped a lot of school, worked out fine, except it didn't. I will tell you this, I realized this week as I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't want to glorify skipping school because I skipped dozens of days, but here's what could happen, kids. And maybe this happened to Ferris, I don't know. I'm thinking what would Ferris' life be like today as a 50-some-year-old guy? I think maybe what happened to Ferris is what happened to me. The kid who got away with skipping school a million times, I think I used up all my sick days. I'm serious, I don't have any job now that I can call in sick to. I work for myself, I'm here at the church, and the guys will cover for me, but if I would have called in this morning and went I'm not feeling it, nobody would be sitting here right now, and same thing at my work. So I'm maybe what happens if you ditch a lot of school, you use up all your sick days and you'll never have a job that you can call in sick. I don't know. That's what happened to me, so yes, parents, I'm being punished. Yeah, I just believe that, but here's the thing. It is interesting, isn't it, to think about what could have happened to these guys in the future. In 2017, I believe, just this is my thought, that Cameron is probably still kicking himself for trashing that Ferrari, right? I did a little research. I Googled it in the bathroom. I did a little research, and I found out that Ferrari 250 GT would be worth over $28 million at auction now. So basically, Cameron kicked his $28 million inheritance out the wall of that super sweet garage. I mean, isn't that, and here's the thing, you're going, well, that wasn't a real Ferrari. Yes, do you know that the replica that they used would be worth over six figures? It would be in the mid-hundreds for the replica of that car. It's just amazing. And I think that's what would have happened to Cameron. But I know what happened to Sloan Peterson. I believe she has two teenage daughters now, and she is so strict, right? She's like, oh, you're not going out with him. And she's checking their Facebook, she's on Snapchat. She is like a mom Nazi because she dated Ferris Bueller. So I know what she's all about now. She's got a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they think she's horrible. So I know that. Now, here's the thing that I'm not sure about. And there's a lot in this film, beyond the skipping school thing, the film really, and the part of the film that I want to talk to you about today that goes from the very beginning to the very end is the relationship between, Ferris and his sister Jeannie. And she says this about 17 times, but she says, in a nutshell, I hate my brother, right? Again and again, she's like, oh, I hate Ferris. In fact, she seems to be and the more people talk nice about Ferris, the more she hates him. And the more people say what a groovy, righteous dude is, the more she hates him. But I wanted to talk to you about that. And I wanted to talk to you about this idea of hate. Because I don't know about you, but man, my heart is breaking for what I see in our nation right now. And hate has become a word that's just it seems like it's in the news all the time, and we saw the events at Charlottesville. And honestly, if you were just watching the news, or nobody watched the news, I don't even watch the news, I'm not going to lie to you, but if you were just reading the news or checking your news website, it would feel like, at least, that this world is just filled with hate. And I will tell you this morning, I don't discount that. There is hate, and it is evil. And there are people who hate others just based on the color of their skin. There are people who hate others based on their economic status. There are people who hate others for all sorts of bad reasons, never a good reason to hate. But I would say to you this morning, I do think that's a real, real problem. And it breaks my heart. But my guess is, because it's such a hot button issue in the news, that percentage is probably smaller than we think it is. It's real, but it's not. It would seem like everyone hates somebody. I don't think that's true. But I do think the percentage of this other thing that we see in Jeannie is probably way, way higher than we'd like to think about. Because as much as Jeannie said over and over and over again that she hated her brother, it really wasn't it, was it? Like, it turns into hate, but what we see in Jeannie is jealousy and resentment, right? Again and again and again, she's like, he's going to get away with it. I wouldn't get away with it. She said in the opener that we just saw, like, even if I was bleeding from my eyes, you wouldn't let me stay home from school. And here's the thing. Now, it's not nearly as severe, but did you notice that Ferris said, like 4 times, even in the first 6 minutes of the film, he's like, no matter what, I wouldn't have a car. I wouldn't have a car like Jeannie. So Ferris resents his sister for having a car, which he doesn't have. His parents give Jeannie a car. Now, quite frankly, if you saw in the driveway, it was a 4-cylinder Fiero. I wouldn't resent that. It was really a sucky car. But anyway, it was a girl car. But anyway, he had, now I know 3 people are going to go, I had one. It was awesome. I get it. But anyway, no matter what I say, you're hating me. Don't be hating. But anyway, like, he's jealous of his sister in a small but real way. He's got jealousy and resentment. And he even says, like, she got a car, I got a computer. No matter what, I would still have to bum a ride. And Jeannie very, very clearly, she comes right out and says, I hate my brother. I hate my brother. I hate my brother. But really, I think what Jeannie wouldn't admit, but is very, very true, is she's jealous of Ferris, right? I mean, and who wouldn't be? Coolest guy in school. Everybody likes him. Gets away with everything. Golden child. Parents are clueless. And it's interesting because sort of the more people would come to her and go, boy, I love your brother. He's so great. I can't believe you're his sister. Like the more she hated him, the more she resented him, the more jealous she was. And sort of like no matter how great Ferris's life was, like you would go, why do you even need a car? You're driving around in a borrowed Ferrari. I mean, that's amazing. No. He also, and so I would just say to you this morning and be very, very clear. I'm not going, hate doesn't exist. Hate's no big, no. I'm just saying, I think that's a percentage of people, probably smaller than you think. And I think this is probably way bigger than you think. And way bigger than anyone would admit. And I think this jealousy and resentment is so sort of pervasive that it can creep into our hearts even as like church people and Christians and followers of Christ. It can creep in, and it's so hard to see in the mirror. It's so hard. In fact, I would bet that if you could ask Jeannie or ask Ferris, like, oh, you're jealous of your brother, or you're jealous of neither one would admit it, right? Have you ever tried to ask someone, like, if they're jealous of someone? What do they say? No way, I'm not jealous of them. I hate them. And so I want to just sort of think about this relationship and talk about this relationship because I think this is a problem. Now, it may not be as bad as hate. It may not be, it's more pervasive, but I think this is the gateway drug to hate. Like, I don't know what happened to Jeannie and Ferris, but I think it's possible they could have wound up actually hating each other if this was allowed to fester. Now, I want to say one other thing, and James mentioned this. I'm going to say something right now that I don't think has ever been said in church, but I'm just going to say it. I think Charlie Sheen has the answer. I really do. Like, I watched this film, and I was like, oh, my goodness. The most wise thing I've ever heard came from Charlie Sheen. I mean, Charlie Sheen is right. And let me play this because there's a scene where finally Jeannie is sort of taken into the police station for making a phony phone call, which wasn't phony. Once again, no one believed her. But she goes to the police station and meets up with Charlie Sheen in this one scene that I think is the wisest thing I've ever heard. And so I just have to play it for you. Did you catch that? That might be the wisest thing I've ever heard. And I was thinking as I was watching this, and can I tell you the truth? I didn't even remember that Charlie Sheen was in this movie. Like, I didn't even remember that. In fact, someone this morning said, Charlie Sheen's in that? I said, yeah, he's in that, and he says something amazingly wise. It's mind-blowing. But think about that. Your problem is you. Like, the fact that you're worried about your brother, and not because of what he's doing, not because he might be harming his future, not because he's harming, no. You're worried that he's getting away with something that he doesn't. Your problem is you. You're jealous. and it's causing you to resent your brother. And did you notice what she says? And I think this is sort of a true statement. Like, did you blow him away? Not yet. So what if Stone Charlie Sheen is right? I have something weirder to say to you this morning. I think what he was saying was actually echoing exactly something that the Apostle Paul said that I just can't get out of my head, and I want to share with you. And I've actually talked about this series of verses before, but it's so powerful. It's exact. Just let me read this, because one thing that we always say when we think about hate, we always talk about, well, love is the answer, and that's true. But how do you put that into action? We're Action Church. It's not enough to just sit around and go, oh, I'm going to I will love these people. And it doesn't work that way. So that's what Paul was dealing with. Like, how should you put this idea of loving others into action so you don't become hateful and resentful of others, so you don't live a life of envy and jealousy, so that you can actually well, let me just read it, because I think what Paul says is exactly sort of what Charlie Sheen says, and of course he's Apostle Paul, a little wiser, but listen to this. He says, now, he's writing to these people from Thessalonica, and he says, but we don't need to write to you about the importance of loving each other. So if you're wondering, is love important? Love God, love people, take action? Yes, it's the most important thing. And that's what he's saying. Like, that we don't even need to talk about, because you know that. He said, for God himself has taught you to love one another. Indeed, you already show your love for all the believers throughout Macedonia. Macedonia is like their whole region, their whole state, their whole... it would be like saying to Action Church, like, I see how you share your love with people all over, like the East Coast. I mean, this is amazing. He said, even so, dear brothers and sisters, we urge you to love them even more. And then he just takes a turn into like, so what would that look like? How would you live that out? And I think this is so powerful. He said, make it your goal, make it your lifestyle to live a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands, just as we instructed you before. Then people who are not believers will respect the way you live, and you will not need to depend on others. Isn't that amazing to think? And think about this. What he said is, live a quiet life. So, and one thing we struggle with, I think as Americans, we go, yeah, but there's injustice. Yeah, but we don't like the president, or we do like the president, or we don't like what's going on, or we don't. So we got to do something about it. Now, understand, Paul is living in the Roman Empire, probably the most corrupt time in history, and we find none of Paul leading protests, which is hard to imagine. We find none of Jesus rising up against the Romans. That's what they wanted. Instead, Paul's saying, live a quiet life. You know, and it's interesting, in 2017, we can't even imagine that. Like, if we don't like something, we immediately turn it into a chant. Like, I was literally going, hey, hey, ho, ho, chin-strap beards have got to go. I mean, I could lead you in that. You would like that. And then there's somebody with a chin-strap beard who's mad at me right now. But I'll throw man buns in there. I'm just saying, like, I'm an old man now. And can't grow a beard, which makes me a little bitter and jealous and resentful. But anyway, like, think about it. Like, anything we don't like, and we see, boy, we're fighting, we're going to resist, and that's... But he said, what if you lived a quiet life? And I don't know how you do that in 2017, but we need to think about what would that look like. One thing that I thought of that was sort of funny is someone asked me a while ago, like, I used to be really active on Twitter, and I've been off for, 3 years. And somebody asked me a while ago, they said, what was the biggest thing you learned about going off of social media? And I'll tell you what it is. Nobody missed my opinions. I found that out. It was weird. And here's the thing, like, you have opinions, I have opinions, but the difference is mine are right. Like, honestly, Google it. You can Google it. Mine are always right. And not a single person ever called me up and go, hey, Don, I just need to know what you think about this today, because I missed how... It's weird. Like, we all think somehow, like, we've got to give our opinions. We've got to let people know how we feel. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing and you should just clam up and live in a box somewhere, but I'm just saying you would be surprised how little you will be missed if you didn't do that. And that's what Paul's saying. Like, what if you lived a quiet life? Kind of said it a little more difficult way. He's like, what if you sort of just mind your own business? I think Paul would say it sort of exactly like Charlie Sheen did. Like, your problem is you. What if? Instead of worry, what if you're just worried about yourself and not about what your brother does? And see, I think that really hurts because it's true, right? There's something in that, even as Christians. Let me just talk to Christians. Now, I know we're not all Christians in here. I don't have a list, so don't worry. I'm not talking about you. But I'm just saying everyone's welcome here. You don't have to be a follower of Jesus. You could just be checking this out, or you could be skeptical. We are a church who welcomes that. We want skeptical people here. We want to be a church to check this out. But if you're here this morning and you go, that is my deal. I am a follower of Christ. I want to follow Jesus. Let me ask you this. Is it possible that sometimes we get worked up about other people sinning, not because we really care if they're harming themselves, but because we're a little jealous that they're getting away with it? Yeah, see, I knew that wouldn't get a big pop because it's true, right? Like, we struggle with that. How many times you go, I can't believe what they're doing? And so I'm going to post sort of a passive-aggressive thing on Twitter about it. But actually, like, it's amazing, like, sort of how this, what Paul was saying and what Charlie said was so true, like, our problem is, and how we let jealousy and envy and resentment work into our life actually sounds very holy, doesn't it? Like a lot of times we, like his sister, kind of go, oh, I can't believe what they're getting away with. And so what I find and what I think about this whole deal that Paul said, and I think why he was so I'm going to go back to that verse, but why he was so wise in this is he was saying, like, what if you just sort of lived a quiet life? And please understand, this is not talking about isolationism. You don't have to be Amish, but you and I should be a little more Amish. Let me say that. And this is not this morning going, hey, you shouldn't be on social media, or you should. I just want you to think about how could we do this in 2017? Because not only do I think it still works, I know it would. And it's not just a suggestion. Paul's saying, like, make it your goal. So living a quiet life and minding your own business. And you know what that means? Just sort of in common terms is like, we don't have to let people know everything we think about everything. We really don't. In fact, what I've come to believe, and I know you're thinking like, well, that's easy for you to say, Don. You're up here telling me exactly what you think about everything, and I have to sit here and listen to it. No, you don't. I've actually come to believe that you have to give me permission to do this. And you didn't know you were signing the permission slip to hear me talk when you showed it, but that's the truth. Like, you come here, you sit in this chair, you've sort of given me permission to tell you what I think from Scripture. But I'm not going to come to your house and tell you. And in fact, even, quite frankly, unless you ask me, I've just come to the point, like in life, I find no real value in just sort of picking people up and going, hey, let me tell you what I think about your situation. Because they didn't ask and they don't care. And so I think that's what Paul's saying, like living a quiet life, this is not caring about others, or not caring about others. This is not being just totally isolated. This is not, you can't be on social media. But I think what he's saying is, what if we looked to care for our lives instead of just trying to fix everybody else? And then he says even this, and this is really practical. He said, what if you like just worked with your hands? Now, I don't think this means that all of us should be like, have labor jobs or contracting jobs. I'm a painter by trade. That's how I make my living. So it would be easy for me to go, hey, yeah, you should work with your hands. I don't think that's what Paul is saying here. But what I do think Paul is saying here, and I think that we could take even in 2017, is we need to do things, we need to create things, we need to provide services for people that actually improve our world. Like, what if we actually did that? And there's a reason for that he gets to that I think is so valuable. Because guess what? We think we live in bureaucracy now, and we kind of go, oh, but he wouldn't have understood how America worked. Oh, no. Living in the Roman Empire, Paul understood exactly how our world would work. He understood, in fact, one of the things that Jesus did that freaked everyone out is he was followed by tax collectors. Tax collectors were bureaucrats. They were incredibly crooked. They took bribes. In fact, their whole deal was sort of shaking down people. And if you notice what happened is they would come and be with Jesus, and they would actually say, oh my goodness, Jesus has to be bad, because they said tax collectors and sinners hang out with him. And if you have to be in another category from sinners, you know how people think of you. So they were filled. They had this entire society based on graft and corruption. And what Paul was saying is, like, you need to do something that actually creates value. And that's what I would challenge you. Not that you need to work with your hands, not that you need to be a laborer, or God, don't get in construction. It's horrible. But what I'm saying is, what if we as Christians just said, I want to create something. I want to create a service. I want to create a product. I want to create something that is valuable to people that they would actually buy without someone having to put a gun to their head and forcing them to. I think that's a fair thing to say, right? And what could that lead to? This is what I think is really interesting about this passage and why I want to share it with you again, is he said, then people who are not believers will respect the way you live, and you won't need to depend on others. Now, I don't know about you, but as a Christian, as someone who follows Christ and who publicly says, hey, I'm a follower of Christ, man, I can't think of anything better than telling people I'm a Christian and them actually going, yeah, I don't agree with that, but I respect that. You know, I don't agree with Christians, but wouldn't mind if they dated my daughter. Not that I'm going to date their daughter. That would be weird. I've been married for like 1,000 years. But I'm saying, like, I would like to live in a world where people said, sort of like the Amish. I told you we don't need to be Amish, but we should probably be a little more Amish, where people go, yeah, they're hard workers, nice people. I don't understand why they do what they do. That would be a great world to live in. And that's the world, actually, that Paul was talking about. That's the world where he's saying, if we would just mind our business, live quiet lives where we're not in everybody's face telling them what to do and telling them, ooh, this is what I think. Because guess what? Even though I told you I'm right about everything, we're wrong most of the time. He laid out this idea that people would actually respect the way we live. And he even throws in this, and I want to be clear about this. He said, you will not need to depend on others. That doesn't mean we're not connected. That doesn't mean we're all going to sort of live on an island, because guess what? We are all connected in this world we live in. We do depend on others in a sense. Like, one of the things that's funny is an independently employed person. You know, I'm a contractor. I work for myself. I don't work for myself. Like, I don't get paid anything when I paint my house. You know, like Michelle doesn't pay that well, my wife. Like, you know, I paint it, but I don't get paid. So if I just worked for myself, that wouldn't work out. And none of us actually, even if you own a business, we don't work for ourselves. We're all connected. But what he's saying by that is, like, if we lived in a way where we were sort of taking care of ourselves, and where we provided goods and services and products and things that people appreciated and would pay for, then we wouldn't be sort of trying to gain favor with government or with systems or with organizations, and sort of like competing with our brothers and sisters to go, oh, I want more of that, and they have more, because that's what it comes down to, doesn't it? It's interesting to think about, like, the whole story of Ferris and his sister Jeannie. Here's what I hope happened. I'll tell you this. I hope someday they grew up. I hope someday they moved out. And I hope someday Ferris had his own car. And so he wasn't jealous of Jeannie's awful 4-cylinder Fiero. And I hope Jeannie grew up. And Jeannie had a life, became a dancer at a little club in the Catskills. No, that's a different movie. But I hope that Jeannie had a life someday, and she had a family, and she had a career, or she stayed at home, whatever she did. Like, it created so much value and so much joy for her and so much of a feeling of accomplishment that she didn't even worry about what Ferris did anymore. And see, I think that is the answer. When I look around at our world, and I can't tell people, I just told you that we shouldn't be telling everybody what to do, so I'm not going to even begin to tell America what it should do. They don't care what I think anyway. But I'm just saying, for our family, our church family, our world, what if we did this? What if we sort of became adults in a world filled with sort of almost adolescent middle schoolers? I used to say it was teenagers. Now it's like, I feel like maybe it's just me getting older. It feels like our world is like populated by middle schoolers. No offense to middle schoolers, but I'm just saying, you wouldn't want them running the world. I feel like we are. But what if we just said, hey, you know what? You know what my goal is? Not to sort of like get more than Ferris or be more popular than Ferris or, hey, I want what she has, because that's our problem. If you'll just think about it, if you'll just be honest for a moment, I feel like there's an awful lot of us that if we were just like honest looking inward, we would have to say, you know what? It's not that I hate my brother and sister, but I've grown a little resentful. And this really hurts, but I'm a little jealous. I'm a little jealous that they can do things that I can't. I'm a little jealous maybe that they get away with things that I don't. I'm a little jealous that they get something that I don't get. I'm a little jealous that I think they have it better than I do. I'm a little jealous, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And I don't know how to fix that other than this. And I don't know anybody sort of in the world that I could just make do that, because it wouldn't work. But as Christians, we could choose to do that this morning. And so I just want to read this, and I just want to pray with you. And maybe you consider from this like ridiculous 30-year-old movie that there could be a different way. That we could actually be people who, even if they didn't agree with us, even if they didn't think that we were right, even if they thought we were old-fashioned, if they thought we were superstitious, they would respect the way we lived. And that we wouldn't constantly be trying to just gain favor with the government or with the system or with the patriarchy. Whatever it is that we're trying to gain, we wouldn't have to, because we would be secure and adult in our lives. And so make it your goal, as Paul said, to live a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands, just as we instructed you before. Then people who are not believers will respect the way you live, and you will not need to depend on others. Now you might say, could that possibly work? I mean, that sounds sort of impossible. I want the band to come back up. I believe we're here today because this worked. I believe we're here today because in Rome, in the Roman Empire, this giant bureaucracy that eventually crumbled under its own weight, this sinful, pagan, just destructive, violent culture, this worked. And this little idea, this little germ called Christianity grew, and it's still alive today because of these people. So I just want to pray with you. Dear Jesus, God, we are so grateful for your instruction. Because, God, it is hard to figure out what to do in this world we live in. And God, our heart breaks for the hate and the violence that we see. And God, quite frankly, we don't even know exactly what to do about it. And God, maybe the point is not that we're supposed to fix that, but that we should look and try to fix ourselves with your help. So God, I pray that all of us here, we would sort of learn and think and reevaluate our lives and go, how can I put this into practice in the modern age that we live in, to be a person that my neighbors would respect, even if they don't agree with me? And of course, to love others in a way that nobody ever could put down. In your name we pray. Amen.